Wired. Unplugged.
Hola. Hello,
Hola.
everybody, and welcome.
¿Qué tal?
Yeah, I've always got the Spanish intros, haven't I, going on with this?
Sí.
Yeah. I don't speak a word of Spanish. Well, I do speak a word. Hola. That's all I've got for you. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Wired Unplugged episode 39. My gosh, we're getting there now. We're really getting there. That 52 is going to hit different, isn't it?
We're getting to our midlife crisis, aren't we?
We certainly are. I'd like to think so, yeah. Is 39 midlife? You can ask us a question if you'd like by tweeting us at Wired Unplugged, or you can answer that one just respectfully, please. How you doing, Aaron? Are you okay? You having a good week?
I'm good. It's been a week. It's been a good week. Lots going on, and let's be honest, we're getting into the festive window now.
Yeah.
So things are still busy behind the scenes, but publicly things are starting to kind of slow down, I would guess. Everyone's preparing for the Christmas break. The Game Awards ahead, which are probably going to be like the last big bang bastion of hardcore news this year, I think. But it's an interesting time.
It's like the busy period before the big wind down, I suppose. Yeah. So it's a bit of a Christmas rush, isn't it? But yeah, it's getting there. Like you can sense there's a quiet period on the horizon, which when you're in the thick of it over the summer, especially trying to play all of these games that are coming out, it just seems relentless is the word, I suppose, isn't it? But relentless entertainment products. I mean, come on, guys. Worst things in the world, isn't there? So, right. I think there's quite a lot of information going on around the world about sales, Black Friday-esque stuff, but news-wise, we're pretty hench. Questions, answers, we got it all this week.
Controversy? Well, not really.
Well, more maybe we'll find out more about that in just a moment. But in the meantime, I think it's time that we look introspectively towards what's happening in the Wired Towers. So please, let's roll.
Wired propaganda.
Took the opportunity to let my dog out of the room, who was kind of whining.
Our fluffy friend from last week.
It is our fluffy friend from last week, who the podcast has kind of been interrupted there by the return of my child, who the dog's best friend, obviously, companionship, etc. Very Fable 2. So just kind of let the dog out for the audio listeners who could hear the sounds.
Speaking of Fable 2.
Yeah.
Speaking of Fable 2.
Yes.
Speaking of Fable 2, Peter Molyneux is back on Twitter. He came back to Twitter yesterday after a very, 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 very incredibly long hiatus. He's back. He said, "Hey, everyone, it's been a while. I'm a bit nervous, but it would be great to help share some insights and stories." So welcome back to Twitter, Peter Molyneux.
Wow, Peter Molyneux, my hero.
Yeah.
Everyone else has been...
Did I ever tell you my Peter Molyneux story?
Go on, tell me again.
No. So years ago, let's go back. I was at an E3.
Yeah.
And I think it was the E3 where Nintendo showed off the Wii U for the first time. And they wheeled out that Nintendo Land staging on the show floor. And I was like, what the hell is going on? But anyway, it was that E3.
Yeah.
1 year, in typical fashion, I was very late leaving the show because, when you're doing interviews, nothing runs on time. There are holdups, yada, yada, yada. And I was leaving and I was waiting outside. Everyone had left me, typical. I was waiting outside one of the halls in a taxi section, baking LA heat. And I was just standing there being like, oh, what a day. What an exciting day. What a good E3 so far. Mm-hmm. And then I actually paid attention to where I was, and I looked ahead of me in the queue, and standing right in front of me was Peter Molyneux.
The man himself.
And, I just had a day of interviews with the head of Bethesda and things like that. I was like, I'm going to try my luck. It's like, oh, Peter, hello. You don't know me. But this is me. This is what I do. And he was like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you." And this was just after Curiosity. He was working on Goddess. 22 Cans had been born. Which is his new studio.
His new one.
His studio.
Yeah.
Not new anymore.
Yes, his latest. Yes.
It's been a while. But yeah, and we got talking, and it was like, I was like, oh, when I'm back in the UK, it'd be good to do an interview with you. We'll talk about 22 Cans, a bit about Goddess, a bit about Curiosity the Cube and how that all came about, blah, blah, blah. It was like, oh, well, there are no taxes around. Why don't we just do it now? Okay, set up the camera, blah, 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 do all that jazz. Anyway, we had a nice little interview. And then after it was like, oh, well, when, I can't do a Peter Molyneux voice, but it's like, when you're back in the UK, why don't you pop over to 22 Cans and we can have a chat and show you around and stuff? And I was like, you know what? I would absolutely love that Peter Molyneux from the Fable series and Black and White
and Dungeon Keeper and Magic Carpet.
Yeah, and Fable the Journey. So I did. I got back, and several weeks later we caught up over email. I was like, well, why don't you come in next week? I've got time. We'll talk. And I went in. I was like, I'm very excited. I'm on my way. And I got in, and it was like, oh, are you here for the interview? And I was like, oh, I think we're just going to chat and have a little look around. It's like, no. You're here for a job interview. And I was like, what? I went along with it. I was like, Pete Molyneux wasn't actually there that day.
That's so bad, isn't it? Yeah.
But anyway, he's a great guy. Went along with it anyway. Got to meet a lot of people at 22 Cans and all that jazz. But welcome back to Twitter, Peter Molyneux, and thanks for the job interview that I didn't know was a job interview.
Yeah. Do you know, once I did exactly the same thing where I applied to be like a waiter at like a Pizza Express, and it was like a 1 hour round, like a 1 hour bus there. Back in the day, and then it was like, this is a job for head chef role, and I was like, no, it's not, and they were like really weird about it. So I thought, all right, fine. So I lied all the way through the interview and was acting like I was the best chef ever, and then
I can make a roof.
Yeah. No, I just said I had loads of experience and that, and then and just because they wasted my time, so I wanted to waste theirs, and then they gave me offered me the job, obviously, and I was like, no, haha. So shouts out Pizza Express Chester about 14 years ago. Anyway, this was the wide propaganda segment. We've gone well off tangent, but like we've gone so off tangent. Like I'm gonna reel it back. I'm gonna re-jingle. I'm gonna re-jingle, which is it's a doing word that I can only use here. All right, okay, yeah. Thanks, Peter, for everything. I've just done a really bad tweet about that as well, saying "Daddy's home." Right, nice one.
Wired propaganda.
Right.
It's that time, Jake.
It's that time. So, what's happening at Wired Towers the last week of November?
It's been the last full week of November.
But the next podcast is going to go live on the 2nd of December, isn't it? So,
do you know what? It's been an incredible week for several games that are upcoming from Wired.
Yeah.
There have been trailers galore, Jake.
There has,
yeah. So earlier this week there was the PC Gamer Show, and we were very lucky to have a brand new trailer for Gori, Cuddly Carnage, which is en route. And I think someone, who was it? I saw someone tweeting, because PlayStation tweeted the trailer as well, which was amazing. Thank you for 250,000 views, PlayStation, on Twitter alone. And someone said, this game should be called Straya Netta. And I was like,
very good. Yes.
You win, person. I can't remember who it was, but I was like, you are it.
Yeah, very good pun.
During the same show, there was also a brand new trailer for Bulwark, the Falconeer Chronicles.
Yeah, I learned how to say it that day. I literally watched the show and went, so that's how you say it.
How do you say it?
I was going to say Bullock.
Bullock.
And I think actually I watched an old program about boats it was a Rick Stein Food Network show or something, and
I loved his shows. Could get lost on a day off in his shows in the Mediterranean or something.
Yeah, well, Rick said, but he was revisiting his home of Cornwall or something, and a bulwark, for people who don't really know, it's like a defensive sort of wall or something. It's normally on the side of a big ship. It's some sort of defense there. And anyway, I was watching some Cornish dude describing it, and he called it a bullock. So I just thought he was right. I assume some random old man was right. Turns out Thomas Saller's right, as usual.
It's good, though, because at least now we all know how you got that head chef offer. It's like, I watched all the Rick Stein. I served under him for a little while on the Bulwark.
On the Bulwark.
But the thing is, right, it kind of reminds me of, I think, Playon, when they were their old company, Koch, right?
Koch.
I remember they had a thing that went on social. It was different people from around the business saying, how do you say the name of the company? And some people were like, Koch.
Yeah. Coach.
But also, it's like there's survival shows. I think it was Bear Grylls or something, and they showed him saying the same word over several different series of things. And it's like a cache, a cache, a cache.
Exactly. Exactly.
What is it? Tell me. I don't know.
I reckon that's what happened. I think the official trailer should change every time.
Well, it's like bona fide, right? Is it bona fide? Is it bona fide?
I never thought of that, but yeah. This is what I mean. So I thought it was open to interpretation, but it was a pretty definitive answer in the trailer, which is, again, it says it quite a few times. Build your bulwark, Bulwark. So anyway, that was a really nice trailer.
The jingle again, aren't we?
No, I think this is relevant. It's about the Bulwark trailer. I mean, sure, it's 5 times longer than the trailer, but
short and concise, shows everything that it needs to keep, some surprises. And if you want a little look at the gaming development as well, you can just pop over to Thomas's Twitter feed. He posts so many interesting dev tidbits of how he's tackling different problems, and it's just really insightful if you have any interest in like getting a little insight into games, because he's making this on his own, right? That's not all. It's not all, Jake. There's one more. There was also the Golden Joystick Awards.
Very recently.
Cool show. And we showed a brand new trailer for Tin Hearts. Tin Hearts, which is
very dramatic trailer too.
It's really dramatic. It's got it's starting to show some of the emotional weight that can be found within the game. It's a really beautiful story, and if I want to spoil anything, it's a very interesting journey that you go on. And Costas, whose baby the game is, along with many others, a rogue son, he describes it as Dickensian lemmings. Which, when he said that to me the first time, I was like, yes. No, you are absolutely
sound like a support band.
Dickensian lemmings. And the Four Stooges or whatever. I don't know.
Exactly. It's the Four Scrooges.
The Four Scrooges. Trailers galore. They're available on YouTube and on Twitter now. So go give them a look. Get a nice little taste. A chef's taste of palate. I don't know if that's lingo you use.
A petit four.
Games.
Petit four. Very good. But listen,
is that like a petit filou, or is that?
No, we have no affiliation with Petit Filou. We do have some sort of ongoing brand affiliation to mention in just a moment. But this is a reminder for our audio listeners that, alongside those trailers, we are also on YouTube and Twitter. If you want the visual component to this podcast, the visual accompaniment, the wine flight, we're on YouTube, Wired Unplugged. This is going to become a Michelin star podcast before the end, isn't it?
First podcast again.
We're on YouTube in case you want to know what your two favourite head chefs look like. And we've also got Twitter because we haven't made a hive yet, like everybody else this week. And we're on there. We're verified. We didn't have to pay $8 for it, and it's Wired Unplugged, baby.
And followed by John Cena. Yes. Yep. We did not see that coming.
No,
it's true.
It's true.
No, but you mentioned a brand affiliation, right? We had a bit of a back and forth about my memories of living in Birmingham way back when, and the great Krispy Kreme dynasty. And we had a bit of a chat like that. Steph, who's on the social team, who we spoke about many times so far, who will hopefully be a guest.
Yeah, very soon. I'd like to. I've reached out.
Yeah, I've seen. And she tagged in the Krispy Kreme account along with the video clip from this very podcast, and they have got back in touch to confirm that this is still a thing that happens even to this day. After this is such a long time ago that memory is from, and the fact that they're still doing the free donut bat signal is immense.
Yeah, my favorite thing was that Krispy Kreme sent us a kiss emoji. That's just lit, isn't it? So
I think I'm trying to arrange a bit of a trade, right? We get Krispy Kremes, they get games. Krispy Kreme's games.
Yeah, it seems fair to me. Why not both?
Yeah.
That sounds like a good night in. So
do a little ad thing. That'll be fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme, get back at us. All right. This conversation's warm and fresh, like your donuts. Thank you very much.
This week's Krispy Kreme game, hole in one.
Yeah. Possibilities are endless, really, to be honest. Okay, so yeah, that was an interesting little thing. So yeah, if you're interested in checking out the trailers, you can do so on Twitter. Short form entertainment, of course, is available on Twitter, as well as YouTube, where you can find lots of other cool, wired stuff, to be honest. Like, you keep making allusions to, like, the dev diaries, and I don't think people quite understand the depth, complexity, and, like, insight you can get from them. They're pretty lit, to be honest, so it's worth checking them out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting, right? Because there was that period of time where I can't remember exactly what the discourse was around, but I think it was around visuals in games, maybe. Visuals in games and how long it takes and all that jazz. Yeah, there's so much information out there that already wants to tell you and invite you into the game making process, but you know, people make it, and not necessarily everyone is out there hounding for it, but that stuff exists, and if you want a very interesting insight, then consume it. Consume it, because there's very interesting things out there, like we mentioned. Even just following Thomas on Twitter, you will get so much game dev,
crazy,
niggles, little things, little challenges that he tackles every single day working on the game, his resolutions and so on. It's amazing. It's amazing. That stuff is out there. The truth is out there. It's like the X-Files for games.
What other propaganda have we got out there?
Well, Scully. I can't remember. Mulder, Fox Mulder. That's the guy in it.
Fox, What first
Dana
name?
Scully.
Yeah.
Fox.
You looked at that
Fox
baby
Mulder.
and went, Fox.
That
was a
Fox
real
and
choice.
Mulder.
Yeah.
It's like that whoever, they're just born for greatness, you know, with a name like that.
What were the other names on his mum and dad's shortlist like? They landed on Fox, like
Fox,
Phoenix. You know what I mean? It wasn't going to be like Chris, was it?
Yeah.
Chris Mulder.
Chris. No. Yeah.
Shouts out to the Chris's of the world, but yeah,
Murray Mulder.
Murray Mulder sounds like a craft beer company.
It sounds like a house defect. It's got the Murray Mulder.
The Venetians go well with the Mulder. Yeah.
Great. There's more propaganda that we need to get through. So the Steam Autumn Sale has started, and I'd have a good couple of games in there. Arcade Paradise, Deliver Us the Moon, Grit, and there's a bunch of others. Even like old. Sorry, my phone is ringing. Even old favorites like The Last Inuwa, which is a really cool game that people haven't checked out. But the one that I do want to pick out is that right now in the Steam Autumn Sale there is 70% off Close to the Sun. The Steam sale lasts until the 29th of November. But the reason why I want to pick out Close to the Sun is because, one, the game is great. It is visually beautiful. And the team, Storm in a Teacup, that made it are just really, really good people. But I kind of want to have a bit of a conversation as well, because I think sometimes there's an apprehension for people to pick up games that aren't now. Do you know what I mean? That aren't in the public limelight right now. And it's a bit weird because, you know, I don't know, I think you're the same as me. I have a backlog of games that I've bought that I haven't even opened yet. I've still got The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt wrapped up for Switch. Sorry.
I was going to say that literally during the recording of this podcast, by the way, CD Projekt Red have just dropped the trailer for the next gen one. By the way, when I went to do my terrible Peter Molyneux tweet, it just was live during this. Yeah, so there we go. Maybe that's going to stay in the cellophane now.
But Cyberpunk is still in there. Guardians of the Galaxy, which my brother bought me as a present. Sorry, brother, if you.
Sorry, brother.
No, but you know, they're games that I definitely want to get to. But do you think that sometimes there is a bit of an apprehension to get really involved in a game that has come out that isn't new? Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's a pressure to just like consume
I think
the new
so,
things.
I think quite a lot of it comes down to the fact that like you can go on Twitter and talk about it, or you can go on Reddit, or you can go on a forum and you can say, oh, what do you think of this and this and this? And also when you play something new, like you don't get spoiled. Whereas a lot of like, you know, like, I don't know, God of War, I don't know, we're a couple of weeks in now, there's probably spoilers on Twitter, right? So we're in the danger zone. It's relevant enough to be spoiled and can get spoiled for you, But if you weren't in that first wave, like maybe people do it like that. The FOMO engine is real. You're dead right though. But like,
it's really hard though, right? Because this is I don't know if you found this as well. Because we both in different ways work with content creators, right? As part of our jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
And when there is a game that has come out that is so big and everyone is covering it, and you're like, I'm going to find the right time to play that. But when you're researching and you're looking at content and seeing what different people are doing, when it's like, oh, here is part 28 of this walkthrough where Kratos does the river dance. You're like, no, I didn't want to know he does the river dance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do have to like be careful in our job because of that. And then it's interesting to see like which games have like a long people playing it. I'll tell you what game I've just found that loads of people are playing all the way through still is Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
which is my jam.
Exactly.
I'm currently in this,
Exactly. And I found a lot of content in exactly the same thing. But you're right. But there's a really amazing little grown-up moment that you have, right? And this is if you want to feel like some real satisfaction, play a game that nobody is talking about from some years ago when it's just you and your feelings, and then you just submit. You are a little bit tempted to be like, how did I miss this? Like, for example, I'm playing Overwatch 2, which is just Overwatch 1. I'm not going to lie. And it's so funny to think, here I am, 6 years late. None of my friends want to talk to me about Overwatch anymore. And when I talk about Overwatch, they're like, oh, yeah, Overwatch 2, didn't really do it for me. It's just Overwatch 1, but with one less hero. But I found this peace, this zen, that I'm like, well, just me and my... just me. Me and a bunch of, random people on the internet playing this game that's just old. But a single-player game is even more zen. Play like Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem or something.
Mate, I did this 4 years ago. That was when I did my last playthrough of Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem.
There you go.
I loved it, and it's one of those things where it's nice. It's nice to pop out a gem like that, isn't it?
It is. Exactly. You play a game that's like got like zero current buzz. So Close to the Sun is just like one. There's loads of games like it right now. Close to the Sun's what? A couple of years old, 2019 or something like that, I think, isn't it?
It's a couple of years now, yeah.
And it's the Tesla one, isn't it? I only know it because I played it at the time.
Yes. Alternate reality Tesla experience. So Tesla has made a place. Tesla's ambition in this universe, which was similar to his ambition in real life, was he got to make a utopia that happens to be floating on waters to escape laws, where people could practice science freely, and they are given a space to create, let their minds run free, and try and solve some problems, some world problems, and do incredible stuff with science. It's a really interesting game that kind of leads into a what if scenario of alternate history, which I think is quite a cool angle. There's a very interesting thing about this game as well is just because of the era and the time. I
know what you're going to say. Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say. The ship, the utopia that was built, it's kitted out in very fine Art Deco style. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think when people originally saw the trailers and screenshots for it, they were like, oh, it's like Bioshock.
Bit Bioshock.
It's indie Bioshock.
Yeah.
And I remember the developers were they were flattered, very flattered by the comparison.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, actually, that's a heavy burden to lift because we aren't making Bioshock. We're not making a side version of Bioshock or anything like that. We just featured this art style. I remember in the press tours and stuff for the game, there was a slide in there which was just to put things straight. This game, whilst it features Art Deco style, is definitely not Bioshock. It's not a Bioshock thing. So, you'll see when you play the game yourself that it's different. But take it for what it is. So many interesting stories about this game as well. There's I don't know if I've mentioned this on here before as well, but there's a moment where you get onto the ship and you're in the docking bay, and then you go through the main doors and you get trapped inside. The doors close, and there's like red giant writing on the door, and it looks like it's written in blood, and it's like a very sinister message. And here's an interesting thing that some people don't get to see is games get submitted to ratings boards, right?
Yeah.
And a part of the process when it's going through and stuff, you get back and forth conversations on considerations of what would make it certain age ratings and so on, and things that need to be addressed and answered and changed. not changed necessarily, but it's like
Adapted.
if this is left, this is and one of their big concerns was, that would have taken up the age rating another notch. Was this blood writing, it seems gruesome. It implies X, Y, and Z. And the developers had to go back and be like, if you followed the blood trail, if you followed the red trail, you'll see that actually there's a paint can in the environment, and it's painted. It's not someone's blood. It's just very cool. Sorry, we were talking about Closer to Something too long, but do check it out. Check it out because it's an absolutely beautifully put together game, and I think it will give you really good alternate take on history, but also shock and suspense. Let's just make this about Closer to Sun now. There's really interesting things in the game as well, where the team looked at some of the concepts and thoughts that Tesla had about specific things, right? Because
crucially, Nikola Tesla, Serbian-American inventor, was a real person. Factually the inventor of electricity before Thomas Edison stole it. You can look into it.
Exactly.
Sounds like a conspiracy theory
that's
here,
addressed.
but that's addressed.
But so they looked at some inventions that weren't complete or weren't thought of and so on, and try and adapted them to see what they would look like in fruition. And one of the things they did, they came up with, there was one invention that they came up with themselves, which was around remote controlled vehicles. So at the start of the game, it's not a spoiler, but the way you get to the main part of the game is you go on this remote controlled, an autopiloted boat, shall we say, an autopiloted water-based vehicle. And as they were starting to go into concepts of that and stuff, it turns out through some digging that this was actually something that he had considered and had plans for. So they just developed on that, and it's really brilliant. Really interestingly as well, this is, again, I can talk about this forever. If you go on the Wired YouTube and just type in Close to the Sun Tesla coil, right, there is a version of the theme song, which is the theme song for the game is amazing. And it is being recreated by a guy who was harnessed Tesla coils to produce musical notes, and you can watch the whole thing happen. And it's just a really beautiful thing. Science is amazing.
Yeah,
science is amazing.
Is cool.
Yeah,
very nice.
Brian Cox is amazing as well. Both of them.
Yeah, shouts out Succession.
Shout out to both.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah. Well, there we go. Close to the Sun getting a little bit of spotlight here.
Got a lot of love for that game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Memories just come up, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. That.
If you're listening to this quite recently, if you're not listening to this posthumously, 6 months in advance.
Posthumously?
Yeah.
Exactly. After someone's dead.
Yeah, exactly. The sale's down.
if you're listening in the afterlife.
Yeah. Oh, right. No. Sorry, I meant if you're listening. Yeah, sorry, I meant after the death of this sale, because this is the thing. The Steam Autumn sale, unfortunately, comes to an end. It ends November 29th. So if you're listening to this the first week it comes out, then good for you. Closer to the Sun is cheap as heck. If not, unfortunately, this offer is deceased. Rest in peace. That's why I'm wearing the funeral cap. All right, cool. All right, nice one. Right, what else have we got in the pipeline for the? There's
one more thing, and we've spoken about this a lot. We get a lot of steamy fanfic come through to the emails.
Hell yeah, we do. Yeah.
When all we really ask for are questions for the show.
Yeah, it's really difficult to be so popular and handsome. Yeah.
Tell me what it's like, but I think as we mentioned at the top as well, things are starting to. Things are starting to slow down in the game world. Everyone is starting to take a breather, get relaxed, get ready for a nice festive period where they can. But we want to spread the festive joy. We want to spread the festive joy to everyone that listens to, that watches this. And essentially, if you tweet a question to @WiredP or @WiredUnplug for this show and use #WiredUnplugged, if your question gets asked next week or the subsequent weeks in the lead up to Christmas, you will.
There's a few weeks.
So we're going to have some festive fun here. But you'll be able to choose a game of your choice from the wide catalogue, including new things like Arcade Paradise, Martha is Dead. Mm-hmm. There's a lot there that you can have a look. So ask a question, get a game. But this is also valid for people who email in at unplugged@wiredproductions.com.
There we go. Yeah, if you want to be anonymous or whatever for some reason, I don't know what kind of questions you're asking like that.
But to be honest, though, Jake, we have some questions.
Oh,
should we give a little a rundown of how this happens? We don't have a jingle for question time yet.
Question of the week.
Just because we'll be sued by the BBC.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we had a tweet, and it's a two-parter. We technically asked for one question, so this person just went over their question limit. And this is a tweet from Neil David B. Don't know who he is. Right. Cool guy, apparently.
Shouts out Neil.
Really
David
cool
B.
guy. So two-parter. So Neil wants to know what was my non-getting married highlight of the year, and also separately to that for Jake, he wants to know your most controversial gaming moment of 2022 so far.
Oh my gosh! Okay, mine personally, right? No.
Yeah.
Well, I think mine personally was getting banned from Overwatch for my username, which I've mentioned before. I'm not proud of it, but it was controversial because I've never really been banned from a video game before.
Yeah.
But I suppose the most controversial gaming moment of the year, if I had to think of a real answer, would be Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, wouldn't it? It's quite controversial. I mean, factually, it's quite controversial because
it hasn't happened.
The global, Well, yes. Sorry,
the process is very interesting.
Yeah, that's why, and I guess that's kind of it. So they've attempted a $68.7 billion takeover of one of the world's largest publishers and development houses in the world. Microsoft are, and in fact, it's such a controversial thing that global courts from all around the world are having to check that it's not a monopoly, because they will own, like we've mentioned it in the podcast the last few weeks, this Call of Duty thing where, ultimately Microsoft will get a say on whether they're allowed to keep Call of Duty, or whether PlayStation are allowed to keep Call of Duty. But for those that maybe aren't aware of the publisher stuff, you only kind of care about the games. You might recognize some of the franchises that Activision Blizzard own. They're all household names, like the likes of like Candy Crush, Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Call of Duty,
The Lost Vikings.
That's a heck of a game. That Activision also own classic IPs like Tenchu. So like
Stealth Assassin.
Yeah, classic. That So I think that's probably the most controversial moment. And I guess it's so controversial, it's been like, let's put it this way. One of the very, very, very first Wired Unplugs that we ever did, we talked about this. This news was in January 2022. Obviously, this amount of money, 60 odd billion, needs a lot of time. But yeah, This is controversial. That's what I think anyway. So thank you very much for your question. And hopefully that's suitable.
Yeah, I'm sure Neil will be happy with that. He gets a code. But no, my highlight of the year, I think, came at Gamescom, where finally, after many years of chatting back and forth on and off about little nitty-gritty things, I got to spend a good amount of time with Matt Hafey from Trivium.
Yeah, on a personal note. On a personal note, by the way, I got Trivium tickets today
for January.
For January,
I will see you there. I will see it because not sound like a D word.
Yeah,
but I've been invited along.
Yeah,
I've been invited along. So
yeah. All right, good for us. So this is very unrelatable for the people at home. This is very unrelatable. Yeah. But that was a highlight. So let's let Aaron have a highlight, guys. All right, very good.
No, that was my highlight. Being able to just shoot the breeze, talk about all the cool stuff that he's working on. Talk about spent a lot of time talking about Nobuo Uematsu, Final Fantasy composer and so on. And it was just great. And made a good buddy out of it.
That's nice, isn't it? And for those that aren't aware, Trivium, of course, are a popular heavy metal act. For the last 20 years, have been storming the world with their music. I remember back, 2005, I think I saw a trip from. They were supporting Iron Maiden, and now they're their own headline act now. And Matt Heafy, vocalist and guitarist of Trivium, is also a keen gamer. Not like dips into a bit of Candy Crush every now and then, but he's really into it, isn't he? So
a keen gamer. But not only that, he has produced music for several top streamers in the Twitch realm. Like giving them theme songs and so on.
Jingles.
And he was also part of a really cool movement around, for the streamers out there, YouTubers that have had, this issue. When you stream a game, it has licensed music, but it doesn't necessarily cover anything beyond trailers and so on. Yeah. And in-game use, you'll get a takedown notice, right? Or a copyright strike. And he was a vocal part in helping enable some popular music to be played by Twitch streamers and YouTubers, across no matter what they want to do. And he's a big vocal advocate for that. And just a really good guy all around, really. And he's just released a children's book. He's just released a children's book. Some
people just got it in them, haven't they? Renaissance man,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's like Mark Tremonti, from guitarist / vocalist from Tremonti / Creed / Alter Bridge. He released a book called A Dying Machine, which was a companion to the album in a way,
right?
But he's got some writing chops. I think he co-wrote it with it's a guy called Nick Shirley. I think someone like that.
I suppose if you're like a lyricist, I guess that's a writing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool, and I read it, and it's brilliant. And there's people out there that can just do all these things. But it's like you, right? I think I'm the same as well. Where it's like, whilst there is a core profession, it's always good to put your creative energies in other places as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So
yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's what a joyous thing. So that's a really nice highlight. That's a nice problem. Yeah. And what a nice question. Two-parter.
Yeah, and obviously starting this.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thanks very much. Yeah.
That's another question.
That's it. Yeah.
Got one more question.
Oh, you got
another question from with Nell Marwood on Twitter.
Okay.
He asks, who does the voiceover for the Wired Unplugged links?
Who does do the voice of the Wired Unplugged links?
So, this goes back to, obviously it's Gloria Gaynor, as was actually discussed on episode 0/episode 1. No, but it's Mikey Goodman.
I refuse. It was like, what was the in-joke from episode? Was it Lionel Richie or something? I can't remember. That's what I was racking my brain trying to think what was the answer we said, but what was the canonical answer that we said once? Because the thing is, Mikey Goodman joined us, so the truth is out there, Scully. But I couldn't remember who. Gloria Gaynor, Lionel Richie, or something like that. I think
Lionel
it was like
Richie.
the very first.
It was a running thing. It was someone different.
Episodes. Yeah. But it is
until Mikey was actually on, and then the truth came out.
Yeah,
it's Mikey Goodman. So Mikey was so he's a lyricist, is a VA performer, as a VA director, but he's also a member of a very interesting band that Jake likes.
Yes,
and that came out as a surprise. It was like, oh yeah, I've got their album. It's like super rare, and
I got the Trees Are Dead, the 2003 sixth album, which is like you can't get it anymore and stuff like that. So that's it. So Mike Goodman, whose voice talents are available through his agency Carractoon.
I got it. But so he's sorry. I should give him a bit more credit, especially when related to Wired. But he did a lot of the voice direction for the Falconeer. Yeah. But he also did. He took on all the voice work for Disco Elysium. The final cut.
Did. He was the voice director for that. Yeah. And he had some interesting stories about that, like how he casts people and stuff like that. A real holistic approach, going into like a shop and just hearing somebody and saying, "Hey, excuse me, can I? Would you be able? Like he'd just do that. He'd hear a card. Yeah. And
it's like Squid Game, but it's just like his VR.
But very low stakes. Yeah,
very low stakes. Yeah. Meet him at the train station at night and we'll play a little game of whatever.
Yeah, very good. So
great guy.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to ask a question and win a key for any of the Wired titles, please feel free to tweet us at WiredP or Wired Unplugged, or you can email us at unplugged@wiredproductions.com. Thank you very much. All right, well, that was a good Q&A session. We had a nice propaganda cannon segment. But now let's look at the wider world where we can find out what's going on, because actually the stuff that's going on is pretty hench, to be honest.
Yeah,
and let's play the jingle.
News we stole from Google
and other places.
Yes, nondescript search engines and the general internet algorithm machines. Yes, so this is the part of the podcast for the fresh blood out there where we look at the non-wired endemic. It's a marketing word there. Sorry, guys. News and interesting tidbits, and we talk about them. And I think we've got a pretty juicy roster from what I can see here. So have at it. What have you got for us this week?
So there's so much. There's so much, and I hope that we can get through it all. Yeah. But the first one I've put in here because I just thought it was very interesting. I think it would be very good to talk about. So Netflix have announced that they're hiring for a brand new AAA game. Interesting. Currently, the studio is led by Overwatch's executive producer, and they're currently hiring for a game director. And this is what they've said within the job description. As game director, you'll be the creative leader of one of Netflix's first generation of internally developed original games. This raises... So this is interesting, right? So Netflix are obviously... a rather large entity. They've been dipping their toes in the gaming space on the Netflix app, where there are some really interesting games that you can play for free as part of your subscription. I'm very interested of what route they're going to go with this, because they've specifically mentioned that this is a AAA game that's going to be a shooter of some sort, either FPS or third person. Don't know. But how are they going to distribute and publish this? Is this something that are they going to release a Netflix gaming controller that connects to your TV, or allow you to use your Xbox controller like Microsoft do in some instances, or are they going to go traditional? Are they going to publish games as Netflix games on consoles and Steam and so on? What are your thoughts on this?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because you're right. They are like the world leading streaming service, I suppose. And
don't forget though, because one thing that hasn't been said is, is this it just goes on to the question that we're talking about, but is this a streaming type service that they're going to do?
Well, that's what,
But, Google have tried and failed, and they're a large entity. I'm just very curious of what route they're going to take with this.
Well, the reason I mentioned that they're streaming and stuff like that is that they could probably tackle it themselves, but Blizzard, right, owned by Microsoft now. This, I know this is not really anything to do with Blizzard, but the Overwatch thing made me think about that, because it reminded me recently that there was it's a now deleted tweet, but there's a Diablo and Overwatch Netflix show in the works. And then I noticed that Chaco, who's the executive producer, Chaco Sonny, who's the executive producer of Overwatch, who's working on this, also directs a bit of TV. He directed some of that He-Man's reboot that they did recently on Netflix. I'm wondering if it's all connected, and I wonder if it's maybe it's part of something similar. But I just wanted to broach a good example of a TV and a film production house doing it the traditional way. So I'm going to bring up Annapurna Pictures, who are... So Annapurna, for those that don't know, they're like a film and production company, and they do a bunch of movies. Like, I guess like some of the big stuff that they did was like, I don't know, Foxcatcher won some Oscars, Zero Dark 30, if you can remember. That was like a war movie. There was an American Hustle. I think Moonlight was an Annapurna thing, or the follow-up, actually, if Beale Street Could Talk. The
Staircase.
Yes.
The Staircase, the dramatized version of the Staircase documentary that featured Colin Firth was Annapurna. I was very surprised at the end of every episode, like, oh, Annapurna, okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. They did that, the Pam and Tommy one as well recently. So anyway, the point is they're a very traditional sort of thing. made their first video game, 6-7 years ago, which is one of my favorite games of the year, if not the best game of that year for me, was What Remains of Edith Finch. That was their first, and that had what you'd call on Metacritic universal acclaim. And since then, they've been releasing games, and remember that they're the only publisher apart from Konami that are getting a publishing role with this Silent Hill thing that we've been mentioning for a long time. So that's traditional. So I'm interested. I would like to assume that Netflix are doing it like that. However, yeah, it's interesting. Now, I don't know if you ever played any of the Netflix games that they've done already. Like, have you played any of these at all? The small interactive ones, like they made a Stranger Things video game. Did you play any of them?
So I didn't, but interesting. That did go to Nintendo Switch as well. I think I remember.
Yeah, that's it. I believe so. Yeah,
but I think the very interesting way that they've gone on mobile as well is that they've taken some interesting like FMV point and click games as well. So I think they've had Immortality.
The Immortality is a Netflix one. Yeah,
and a few others. So it's a very interesting move.
Who knows? And like, those choose your own adventure FMV types. It's something I see that they were dabbling in. Like they did. Netflix picked up this Channel 4 show for those that are sort of international and listening. In the UK, there's a TV channel called Channel 4, and they made this like quite well accredited TV show called Black Mirror. Netflix picked up it for seasons 3 and 4, and then they made like their interactive like. Black Mirror episode called, was it Bandersnatch?
Bandersnatch,
that's it. Yeah. And that was like interactive. I think that was the first one, and actually the first one was like the Puss in Boots kids one. But like, unless you're a parent,
I didn't.
Hashtag dad life. Yeah, exactly. Well, and they started doing that, and then they start bringing in, like you say, Immortality and stuff like that. So yeah, that's interesting. But I guess crucially, the word here that was interesting for me, AAA. Because that implies the big bucks. That doesn't imply you're just pressing left and right on your remote control or your phone or whatever you're watching Netflix on. So yeah. Interesting story that, and I reckon this is definitely one to watch. So great bit of news that. What else have we got going on? What else have you got for me?
This is something interesting. This is hot and fresh today when we're recording.
Like a Krispy Kreme donuts. Shout out.
Like the Krispy Kreme donuts, right? Yeah. Send us the donuts. So you may be aware of a game that's coming out called the Callisto Protocol, right?
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware. I can't wait.
I think it's fair to say that we're both excited. We're both very excited.
Yeah.
And something that's caused a bit of interesting discussion today was the content of the season pass was announced for the game. And as part of the season pass, it was listed that there are going to be 13 new death animations for the main character, as well as new enemy death animations as well. And this caused a bit of some questioning from journalists and gamers and so on, for a game that was initially revealed and is being sold on its gore, it's gore and, being sucked into the blender and split apart into a million pieces.
Yeah.
Why are these things being included in a season pass? And I see it from both angles. I think that really, in my opinion, that this is probably a messaging problem. Because there's no context for how this is all going to be integrated, right? One of the things that they have mentioned is, there's going to be new story, a new area, new modes, and so on. Yeah. And I have to hazard and think that actually that is the core part. And because in this new area, new modes and so on, there will be new obstacles, new things happening, which would
kill you in different ways
to die.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this has just been misconstrued slightly.
I think that is a really, you know what? If you're not right, you deserve to be right. And I hope you are. But yes, of course. So it's like DLC that involves new maps. Like, let's say you were playing a strategy game and you had a new map. You'd have new units new weapons. They're all attached to it. So yeah, maybe the 13 animations are linked directly to. So for example, yeah, and there could be a new weapon that will kill you in a specific way. You know, a giant blade. You know.
Yeah. It goes a bit more combat. But the thing that gets me about this that I find interesting is, you know, in a game it's usually quite traditional, unless you're playing Sunset Overwatch, or whatever it was called.
Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive. Yeah,
You got it, baby.
You know, you try not to die, right? It's not like you're seeking out ways to die.
No.
So I don't think a player is going to seek out 13 ways to die. I mean, it's a cool thing if it happens, but it's like...
Yeah, exactly. I always found that a bit strange. Yeah, so that's exactly it, isn't it? I mean, it's like Mortal Kombat fatalities is the only time that I ever think about something like that, where like I think, who cares about the death animation? But I wondered as well about this. There's one other sort of thing to consider. I don't know if you were going to touch on it, but when you're releasing a game, there's certain nuances, and actually this ties in quite nicely to something that you said. So when you mentioned it earlier, and you were apologising maybe for going a little bit off the deep end of Close to the Sun, I thought, actually, no, let's come back to this. Close to the Sun. We talk about the blood on the door, the red paint. Yeah, the potential blood on the door. Yeah. Well, a classic example is this Total War series where, you know, you're playing a grand strategy campaign with thousands of units that die, thousands of opportunities for dismemberment there. But what they do is it's an additional £1 or whatever for the blood and gore pack. That way the game can be rated at 1 rating, and then later on, because it's an addition you kind of opt into, blah, blah. So obviously this game's going to be an 18 plus no matter what. However, there are still levels to this. So I wanted to add this little bit of flavour to this story. The Callisto Protocol, I don't know if you've heard about this, Glenn Schofield, the game's director from Striking Distance Studios. I mean, even Striking Distance is a bit of an intense name. The guy is a behemoth. He looks like he owns 7 boxing gyms.
I've met him.
He's intense, huh? He even breathes intensely. Like when he was like on the phone to Jeff Keighley at the Game Awards, and he's doing like proper nose breathing. I'm like, Glenn, mate, you are powerful. Yeah, he's like, you're like Kain after he's been unmasked, like. So anyway, brilliant. Basically, Callisto Protocol was in Japan. They were like, there's a 0 rating, CER. Yes. It's like the ESRB. And they were like, in the current state, unless you cut the blood and gore out, we can't release the game. So in a kind of, you know, I don't really want to say it too disparagingly, but in a pretty edgy move, the Callisto Protocol were like, screw you. We're not launching the game. It's cancelled. Striking Distance cancelled the game in Japan.
That's news to me.
This is only a couple of weeks old. The game is not launching because they're not willing to make the edit. So like censorship was a lot softer back in the late 90s or whatever in Japan. But since 2002 when 0 came in, it became a lot stricter. So recent examples I dredged up for this is Cyberpunk has an almost nudity and violence-free version in Japan. The Last of Us is extremely censored in Japan. The Witcher 3 and GTA 5 has an almost violence-free version in Japan. Wow. Worth a Google and a YouTube search that. However, they are not willing to do that for Callisto Protocol, so they stepped right up and went, we're cancelling it then. You know? You don't fire me, I quit type vibe. And I'm wondering if sort of that kind of raised a question in my head that maybe, just maybe, by hiding maybe some of the more gory deaths behind an optional additional DLC, that can kind of alleviate some of these ratings issues because, as you guys can imagine, like when a game is rated 18, it doesn't just mean anything goes. You know what I mean? There's still levels to it.
There's levels, yeah.
And so perhaps, just perhaps, it could be something to do with that. And, you know, hopefully
because Australia are tough as well, aren't they?
They are. So in my day job, I work on the Outlast games, and Outlast 2 famously banned in Australia. But it's because, and I believe the reason is that in Australia, video games, when they were first like kind of brought in, were put in the sort of same sort of level of scrutiny that a kid's toy has. So they're treated like children's products. So obviously, decapitation in a children's product, you know what I mean? Yeah. Exactly. So something like that, yeah.
There's some fortunate crossover that this came up because last night before I saw this as well, there was an interview, not an interview, there was a video. And I think it was like on Ars Technica or something.
Yeah.
And it was them in the studio with Glenn Schofield and his creative team. And the whole conceit behind the video was the Callisto Protocol, what it's like 2 months before launch and what's happening 2 months before launch. And I was watching that, and I'm going to be honest, there were some things that I think within, sorry, I mean this with no disrespect, and I think it was there for content, but there were some things that I'm like, I think some of those conversations were a little bit staged. But there were some interesting, there's a lot of interesting things in the video where, you know, they're talking about, before launch, what we do is we're going through, we're testing, we're looking at every single element, we're getting feedback on what people are drawn to, what they think could be better. But they're also taking, you know, suggestions from the wider team of, wouldn't it be cool if this thing did that, or if this thing stayed attached to you, and I do wonder if from that, because, you know, Glenn and his team, they seem to be of the thing of, you know, if something's cool, then we'll really bloody try and do it. And I wonder if some of that is kind of creep from these last moments where it's like, imagine if we did, if that thing could smush you and you come out like a waffle or something.
Absolutely.
I wonder if there's some things where it's like, not enough time to get it in there now, but maybe we do it as part of this.
I had like an amazing moment when you mentioned this, that I actually didn't realize that it's only a week away. Like,
I keep forgetting as well.
It's literally, so the day that episode 40 of the Wide Unplugged podcast goes live is the day that I'm actually moving house next week, and I've got a week off work, so I'm gonna what a fantastic carrot on a stick that is. If I do all of my furniture putting together and unboxing, my little treat is a little bit of Space Gore.
You're such a good parent to yourself.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Discipline and all of that, etc., etc. So, brilliant. So that's a very interesting bit of news. Let's see. I'm sure next week there'll be a bit of an update on it. I'm sure we'll get some clarity. So, yeah.
So, given that as per, we had a bit of a meaty propaganda section.
No, we did.
Times two. I'm going to let you choose the last news story.
I think we go for the survey one, because I think we've covered the other two topics quite a lot recently. And so I just want to read out the sort of the headlines that we are not the ones on the cutting room floor. Okay, God of War Ragnarok director has said he would very much love to work on a Castlevania game, and which, I mean, hell yeah, but let's leave it to From Software. And now God of War, as I'm just joking, that would be amazing, by the way, just more Castlevania. Konami just start licensing things. And then you had a nice little tidbit there, just as a kind of PSA. God of War.
It's going to be a little golf clap.
Yeah, exactly. Well, God of War has now sold 5.1 million copies in the first week, becoming the fastest selling PlayStation first-party game ever. So, well done, God of War. Maybe that's going to put you in good stead with Konami. And then the other one, speaking of Japan, Sony and Honda could include PS5 consoles in electric cars in a new partnership to rival Tesla. And the goal is to have a self-driving car in 2025 that could help stave off boredom if commuting. I would drive everywhere if I didn't actually have to drive. I just went, I'm going to go and sit in my God of War pod.
Yeah. To be honest, we'll go on for this, but we have a mutual buddy, Ibrahim.
Yeah, shouts out Ibs.
From Square Enix. Yep, shout out to Ibs massive.
Yeah.
I met up with him a couple of weeks back, and we went for lunch. And he has a Tesla. And he drove to the place where we were parking, and he said, "Watch this." And it did the auto parking thing, and the car just takes control. It parks itself even when there's cars around.
Batmobile moment.
It was mind blowing.
Batmobile moment. Mind-blowing. Imagine that, yeah. Whilst playing a bit of God of War, throwing an axe. Crazy. Yeah. Anyway, we digress, but sick though. Anyway, so let's find out more about that, about what happens with cars and stuff like that. I'm sure that's safe for everybody, by the way. So, okay, what's our finale? So,
you know, you're quite passionate about Silent Hill, and we're getting somewhere with that. Something I'm quite passionate about, and I also know that you're passionate about, is a little game from the olden days called The Legacy of Kain. Soul Reaver / Blood Omen.
Blood Omen, yeah.
Now, recently, Crystal Dynamics did a survey, and after 100,000 survey responses, they have heard the call that people really, really want Legacy of Kain to return, and based on that, they have come out and said that they hear fans loud and clear.
Wow.
What does this mean?
Wow.
What does this mean?
So,
I would love a new Legacy of Kain game. I'm not going to lie.
I played the last Legacy of Kain game, which was Nosgoth, which was a sort of hero shooter, but third person. And for those that don't know the story of the Legacy of Kain, it kind of is a little bit similar to Silent Hill in a sense that these were kind of hugely appreciated games by Crystal Dynamics that released in the late 90s. And basically, I think it was Silicon Knights who did the first one, but then Crystal Dynamics, Tomb Raider developers and whatever, they made a series of them. So the Legacy of Kain was like it was like a series, and it was like dark fantasy. Oh, in fact, I got some it was one of the very first fully voice acted games ever. Did you know? Also, I found this out on IMDb many years ago, and I always bring this one out. I remember when Breaking Bad was airing. Back in the day, before it was in Primark and Netflix and people cared in the UK, I used to watch it late at night. And because I worked in a Weatherspoon, so I happened to finish and it was on TV at night. And the voice of Skylar White, right? Anna Gunn, she voices like the main lady in Soul Reaver. That was like her first ever role as an actress. Anyway, so Soul Reaver was like the game where you play as Raziel, the brother of Kain, the eponymous Kain, a little bit of a butthead. He was a bad vampire. Raziel shifting material planes. The series was critically acclaimed, and commercially very successful. It was like considered a huge thing. Square Enix kind of got the IP. For some reason or another, it ended up kind of getting shelved. And what happened this year, to kind of tie into a couple of Wired Unplugged episodes ago, we spoke about how Square Enix kind of sold off quite a lot of their IP to kind of move into more NFT and Web3 kind of things. And one of the rights that was sold to the Embracer Group was Legacy of Kain. Crystal Dynamics also were sold alongside to Embracer Group. So Crystal Dynamics are in charge of their own IP. And I guess Crystal Dynamics work on quite a few titles. They do the Avengers game. They also made, Aaron, you'll notice, but a lot of people won't, Gex. The Gecko. Enter the Gecko. And they did the Tomb Raider series. So I guess they put a survey out, and I guess Gex came up short, did it?
Poor Gex.
Listen, Legacy of Kain is a series that would fit so well into this generation.
Yeah, it's very interesting. For me, what I hope that they do is forego saying that this is a remake of the first one, because you see that so much, and it's like, I mean, this is why, just going back to our last topic, this is why I'm going for the Callisto Protocol over putting my money down for Dead Space remake, because it's like I've played that, and I would like something a bit fresh that is kind of cut from the same material but different and new, and I'm not gonna be known. I
prefer a fresh iteration, exactly the same as you. So and like I mentioned, I don't think enough people know this, because a lot of people, when they say Legacy of Kain, they're only thinking of one game. They're thinking of Soul Reaver, but it was actually a few games, and they were all. It was very clever how they were all intertwined and told many years apart. Very Dark Soulsy. Very. By the way, the only way to describe Legacy of Kain, right, without saying "trust me, bro," is it was ahead of its time with nearly everything. It's really worth. I'm sure there's a fantastic YouTube video on there somewhere that will break it down, but it's well worth looking at, because if they do something new, I'm with you. I would prefer a new story told in that way, but they're probably going to do Soul Reaver, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I guess, but it's I think there's a lot of remakes going on at the moment, and there are some remakes that are tweaking and changing and coming from a different angle, like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, however that's going to turn out. But when you look at we're remaking Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, great game, stuck in a bit of hell at the moment, but I very much look forward to it whenever it comes out. And I wish the team all well just doing it.
Yeah, good luck, because there's a lot to be done. Yeah.
But then it's also, there was the other day, it was Splinter Cell, a Splinter Cell remake, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
Splinter Cell remake of the first game. And again, I'm like, does it need to be a remake? Can it not just be
a new game,
a new standalone game?
Yeah.
That's still a game is still going to have to introduce everyone to the mechanics in some sort of opening tutorial-esque type thing anyway. So it's like, why not do something
just
new?
move on so everyone can yeah,
because then you run the risk of and now we're going to remake Splinter Cell 2, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're dead right. Like
sorry, that's not me disparaging anyone that's working on the game or anything like that, because
no, absolutely.
I'm sure an immense amount of talent and love is going into them, but it's like, hopefully it's like a proving ground to say, we've proved we can do it, and now we can just have fun and do our own thing.
And that happens quite a bit too, doesn't it? So yeah, I hope that's the case. But yeah, that's really, really interesting. I just Googled Splinter Cell, and the only thing that I can see that's not game. Well, the top result is actually that, and I think we'll end on a little bit. This is a bit of a weird one for the UK heads. All right. Only a couple of hours ago, it was announced that Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell is going to be coming out in December in the form of a Radio 4 audio drama. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Firewall, an audio drama, releases in December, and it's a landmark adaptation in the Splinter Cell universe. That's bizarre. Now that is bizarre.
Now, I need some clarification here. So obviously Tom Clancy wrote a lot of books, Ghost Recon. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon is a thing, and same with Rainbow Six. It's Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. Now, was Splinter Cell a novel before it was a game, or was this taking Tom Clancy's input and name and doing something new?
I'm looking because I'm looking now, and it seems to have been something fresh done by some of the Ubisoft talent, and then dramatized by some decent people. It's an 8-part series. It's going to have Will Poulter from We're the Millers or Maze Runner or other stuff, I'm sure, and a whole cast of people. That's kind of crazy, and it's going to have 3D binaural audio for an immersive experience.
Wow,
that is a strange way to end this podcast, but happy Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
I love how Aaron was saying he wants something fresh. He wants a fresh idea, and I'm like, how about this radio drama for this game? So
I appreciate it.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think next week will be our last before our big Game Awards breakdown. So get us some questions sent over, and we'll dedicate some time. And remember that you can walk away, or not walk anywhere really, because you can do it all from the comfort of your phone, really, with some Wired Digital Advent Calendar giftage. All you have to do is ask us a question. You can tweet us at WiredP, Wired Unplugged, or you can email us at unplugged@wiredproductions.com. You can join the Wired Discord if you want, and just ask a question on there too, probably. I think that's what they're going to be doing next week.
Yeah.
There's other stuff in the Wired Discord. It's not just this. It's not just a holding pen for the Unplugged podcast. But more on that next week. All right. Thank you very much, Aaron. Pleasure as always.
Pleasure,
Curtis,
mate.
thank you for your editing expertise, and I wish you all adieu. Stay warm, guys. Goodbye.
Wired. Unplugged.